Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Happy Halloween 2024 to everybody out there. If you guys are going out trick or treating, hope you guys enjoy yourselves and hope you guys are staying safe. Enjoy the holiday season. Enjoy the spirit. Windy as heck over here in Cincinnati. Just winds just gusted up out of nowhere and rain starting to fall. So if you're one of my local followers here in Cincinnati out there on the roads, uh, please take extra precautions if necessary. It's getting real windy and gusty out there. It just really picked up the last few hours. Um, this is my last show on the daytime slot. Starting Monday, I will go prime time because, as I said, I got the mini promotion at my line of work, and I will honor it. I will be doing Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. starting Monday. Let's just get right down to it. We shall. First up is, of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers winning the World Series last night. 4 games to 1 over the Yankees. It looked like the Yankees may had the 5-0 lead and just out of nowhere just fell apart. I don't know what happened. Um, the story of the series is basically one guy did the damage. And that was Freddie Freeman, the walk-off grand slam in Game 1, had the home run in Game 2. Basically, he basically carried the whole team on his shoulders because in typical Dodger fashion, they wanted to ride the coattails of a proven winner, and that's what Freddie Freeman was. He was that way in Atlanta, and he carried it here to LA. The rightful World Series MVP. Congratulations to the great Freddie Freeman. Job well done. But for the Yankees, uh, one of the most mismanaged playoff and even World Series I've seen when it came to Aaron Boone. I'm not going to get into the whole laundry list, but the biggest one, of course, was yank Garrett Cole early in Game 1, and of course, they bring in a pitcher who hasn't pitched more than 6 weeks, and he gives up, of course, the walk-off grand slam to Freddie Freeman. Uh, then you need retooling in your pitching staff in the worst way possible because your bullpen just got absolutely crushed at the worst possible time. Of course, all the comedy errors just added up into game you know Game 5 last night. You built a 5-0 lead. Looked like he was going to pull away, and then the fifth inning, everything just fell off the map. And I don't know what the heck to tell you. I mean, right now, Aaron Boone is getting the business over there in New York, and rightfully so, because a big chunk of the series, basically a lot of these playoffs and even some of the regular season games, he pretty much mismanaged it. Of course, he got to the World Series. You got to give him something for that, but they had opportunities to do something more. I think be more, but it is what it is at the end of the day. But kudos to the Los Angeles Dodgers to winning another World Series to their baseball history. Congratulations to Freddie Freeman, the rightful World Series MVP. Carried the team on his shoulders. Wanted to uplift the Dodgers to bring a World Series to LA. He did that. Kudos to him. And job well done, Los Angeles Dodgers. Now the offseason can begin. So that takes care of that. Now, of course, what I like to do usually I do this on Wednesdays, but I didn't yesterday because I devoted yesterday to the 50-year anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. Just a reminder, if you follow me on the X and Facebook platforms, I wrote an article on it on my site called We Like Sports. I have the link on both of my platforms. You're more welcome to click on it and read it. I basically just paraphrased the boxing aspect of it because of how significant it was. I didn't get into the other areas was largely because a lot of it is political for the wrong reasons, and everybody knows I don't use a platform for it. But you're more than welcome to read it on your own cognizance. So I'm going to end that right there. It was still the greatest, maybe the greatest event in boxing history when you think about it in consideration. You all can go read it and speak for yourselves. Now on to the NFL season. Week 9 begins tonight. Of course, the one that begins tonight is, of course, the Houston Texans and the New York Jets. Last time I checked, they still have the 40-year-old coward as their starting quarterback for New York, and that's why they're not going to win. Until they get that elephant out of the room, they're still going to be who they are. We've seen this in Green. I said before, we've seen this in Green Bay when he ran Brett Favre out of town. We've seen this when he threw player after player after player under the bus for the failures. He did the same thing in New York when he basically got Robert Saleh fired, and of course threw Mike Williams under the bus when he tried to excuse that intentional interception of Teron Johnson in that Monday night game against Buffalo. And now he's basically pointing the media after his recent the loss of the Patriots. I said this all along when it comes to him. He's the perfect definition of what a narcissist is. I mean, if you want to know what it is, that's him. He's a diva. He's a coward. He's a narcissist. He's I don't care about his anything. Everything's up to this point is basically useless because his ending legacy. Because this question has been approached countless times, and I've said this. His legacy at the end of the day wasn't always will be narcissism and cowardice. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. We saw it in Green Bay. We saw it here, and it's basically going to continue. They're playing against a Houston team who basically, sorry about that, a Houston team that basically escaped a win over Indy. These, of course, they lost Stephon Diggs for the year. Nico Collins still on IR. I don't think that matters. I think Joe Mixon's going to have a big game. C.J. Stroud's going to find a way to get the job done. That defense, led by Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. on the edge, is just going to make life heck for the tackles for the New York Jets. And, of course, the Jets have the issues with their kicker. And, of course, we have issues with your kicker. That means it's not good news. And basically, you have an angry Houston team coming to town tonight. And that means C.J. Stroud is going to get a win. So, mark Houston for the win tonight. Now to the Sunday early games. New Orleans at Carolina. Derek Carr comes back for New Orleans. Carolina's is a hot mess. Neither team going anywhere. Somebody has to win this. I think the Saints have just too many weapons. They get the job done. They get the job done in this one. Washington and the Giants. Giants not going anywhere. Jaden Daniels, Rookie of the Year. You start to hear the MVP talk. I think he gets MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, what he's doing in Washington is absolutely phenomenal. I saw him here in Cincinnati week 3, and I was amazed. I said all along, the kid was special. I said it to everybody when I was at that game. And I'm not one to say I told you so and I am right, but I told you so and I am right. He was the most ready quarterback coming out of LSU. You can see the tools that he had when he wound up winning the Heisman last season. It's carried over in the NFL. Probably needs to hit the weight room a little bit. It's a little bit on the thin side, which I'm sure is going to be able to he'll do in due time. But you see the abilities with Jaden Daniels, and basically Washington's more likely going to win the NFC East right now. Is because basically his play, and I expect it to continue here against the Giants team, who basically is checked out for the most part. I mean, they get key pieces on defense here soon, but even then, you still have a $40 million quarterback who thinks banging Kay Adams is a cool thing when it's not. So Washington continues to roll. They complete the sweep of the Giants. Washington takes it on Sunday. Miami and Buffalo. Miami's going nowhere. Josh Allen's in the MVP talk. Nothing more to say. Unless Buffalo crashes and burns, Miami wins. Unless Buffalo crashes and burns, Buffalo wins it at home. I expect him to win this one big. Josh Allen's had hot success against the Dolphins in recent years, and I expect it to continue. A good doozy in Cleveland. The Chargers and the Browns. On paper, you would think that the Chargers are going to win in terms of their record. But there's something when Jameis Winston started in Cleveland that something, atmosphere-wise started to change. There was a bit more of an uplifting. The team had a little extra bounce in their step, a little, if you call it the pep in their step. They got going a little bit better. I would like to think it continues here. The Chargers, after a bit of a rough patch in the middle, got a couple wins going here. I'm going to put a bit of an upset on this one. Give me Cleveland at home. I think Jameis Winston continues, and the play of the Browns uplifts. Because what I saw in the locker room after they beat Baltimore, when Jameis Winston got the start, I mean, the team seemed like whatever dark cloud that was hovering over them the previous weeks was uplifted, and they can enjoy themselves playing football again. I think it continues here. Give me Cleveland and an upset. The Patriots and the Titans, somebody has to win this one, don't they? I mean, this is going to be a game of, comedy of errors both ways. I'm going to probably take Tennessee at home by default. Again, neither team's going anywhere, but I'm taking Tennessee at home basically by virtual default. That's pretty much it. Dallas and Atlanta. Dallas falling on hard times right now. Atlanta coming off the big win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where they completed a sweep and probably going to win the NFC South. It continues here. Kirk Cousins starting to play much better. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, they're all starting to get going. Defense looking much better, led by Jesse Bates in the secondary, probably the premier safety, one of the premier safeties in football right now, along with guys like Antonio Wingfield and Kyle Hamilton and Justin Reed. Atlanta wins this one at home. I think this one's going to be rather decisive. It seems to me like the Cowboys quit on Mike McCarthy, but of course, when you're on a lame duck status like Mike McCarthy is, this is what you're going to get as a result. This is what they were expecting. The Raiders and the Bengals. Your $280 million quarterback basically was on the costume of I even pronounce the guy's name, Molly Coughlin, the kid from Home Alone. I guess he wanted to dress as him for Halloween. You better win this game because you're going to be absolutely trolled if you don't with this. But I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. I think this is the one home win you get. You better win at home, and you better win this one because it's going to be outright ugly if you let the Las Vegas Raiders with Marvin Lewis on that sideline, the longtime Bengals coach that Mike Brown won and the fans wanted to run out. If he gets to win on you guys on Sunday, on your home field after you're 0-4 and you go to 0-5, you might as well put the nail in the coffin for the season because it's not going to happen. For you to have any kind of chance to do anything, you better win this one at home. I think you guys get it done. Cincinnati, I'll give Cincinnati the nod, albeit not by much. Denver and Baltimore. This might be a better game than people think. You think on the surface of Baltimore, all their weapons should just run wild on Denver. Denver's put together a very good, solid team. Not one standout guy, but just a good team. A bunch of guys is gathering together. Bo Nix playing solid ball. They have Javonte Williams as a running back, Cortland Sutton as a receiver. Their defense is lights out, led by, of course, Patrick Surtain in that secondary. This is going to be a closer game than people think. Baltimore's defense is just absolutely atrocious right now. I mean, right now, I know people in Baltimore calling for Zach Orr's head. I mean, which I don't get. Of course, Baltimore made this solid trade to get Deontay Johnson as an additional hands receiver to go opposite Zay Flowers and play with guys like Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar. Of course, you have the two tight ends with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. I think Baltimore gets the job done at home. I don't think this is going to be as easy as people think because Denver's actually got a solid team, but Baltimore is going to get the win at home. That takes care of the early games. And now for the late games. Chicago at Arizona. The first place Arizona Cardinals. Think about it. The first place Arizona Cardinals in the same division as the Seahawks, the 49ers, and the Rams, who everyone had represented the NFC in the playoffs this season. The first place Arizona Cardinals. Think about that. Set up before the season. Jonathan Gannon hasn't playing competitive football, hasn't trending in the right direction. They're playing a Chicago team who basically just had the wind out of their sails when Jaden Daniels just heaved a Hail Mary over everybody's head, ricocheted off a Bears player into Noah Brown's hands for the game-winning touchdown as time expired. I don't know how that psyche is going to be. Give me Arizona at home. Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to do damage over there. They're playing some solid ball right now. They're very competitive, and they come off the big win in Miami last week. The momentum continues. Give me Arizona at home. Jacksonville at Philly. Jacksonville just recently traded Cam Robinson. They're not going anywhere against a Philly team who just dog walked Cincinnati, trying to stay competitive in the NFC East with Washington, or maybe get one of those wild card playoff spots in the NFC. Philly probably wins this one at home by default. It's Doug Peterson's return to Philly. Remember, Peterson was the head coach when Philly beat New England in the Super Bowl a few years back. So he returns home, but it's going to be a bad homecoming. I think Philly handles this one at home. The Rams and the Seahawks. The two stud wide receivers, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, are back. Matthew Stafford playing solid ball. Seattle is one of the real hot and cold teams this season. 1 week they go to Atlanta and stomp the Falcons all over the place. Then they come home and get stomped by Buffalo all over the place. The really hot and cold team. I think you think they'd be better than this, more consistent. Apparently not. You think their defense would be better when you consider Mike McDaniel's background in Baltimore, what the defense they had. They've just been hot and cold. The Rams starting to get healthy, starting to play much better. Give me the Rams on the road. The big game of the NFC North, Detroit and Green Bay. The story here is whether or not Jordan Love's going to play or not. Malik Willis, basically had a great pass to Jalen Reed to set up the game-winning field goal by Brandon McManus last week against the Detroit offense, who's just absolutely cooking right now. I mean, they're throwing every trick play in the book to make you any defense look as embarrassing as possible. But at the end of the day, for this one, I think Detroit's offense still continues. It's gonna come down to whether or not Green Bay can find a way to keep up with this Detroit offense, who's a sizzler right now. The defense is going to have to really step it up to try and limit what Detroit is doing, because right now the Lions offense is a sizzling. What they did at Dallas and Tennessee is just absolutely surreal. I mean, I don't care who was on the field. You put up 47 to 52 points on anyone in this league, your offense is cooking. Detroit, I think it'll be a much better game this time. I don't think the offense will cook that much because I think Green Bay is going to rise to the occasion, it being a divisional game. But give me Detroit on the road. They're just playing too well. The Sunday night tilt is Indiana at Minnesota. After the injury to Derek Shaw, gone with for the year with the ACL tear, they get Cam Robinson to protect the blind side of Sam Darnold, what I think is a real solid pickup. The defense is still playing well under Brian Flores. Sam Darnold hit a bit of a downturn, but I expect him to turn it here. I guess the Indy team is playing Joe Flacco. The magic of Joe Flacco in this one. But Minnesota at home, I think, just has too many weapons and too many answers. Give me Minnesota at home. And, of course, the Monday night game is the Tampa Bay at Kansas City. Baker Mayfield without his two receivers. Good luck at Arrowhead. Kansas City stays undefeated. The acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Uke from the Patriots, they're going to make their marks in this game. I expect Kansas to win this one, and I expect them to win it decisively. So that takes care of the late picks and my NFL picks for the day. My NFL talk for my NFL followers out there. Now to the one everybody calls my specialty. I don't call it my specialties. I talk all sports equally. I bring this. What I'm about to bring up is because everyone once again is hoopla over what's going on in the heavyweight division. Everybody's going crazy over a belt Daniel Dubois holds. All it is a belt. Get it through your thick heads a little bit. It's just a belt. It's not a championship. It's a belt. We're going back to 1947 to 1954 today. In the 80s, we had the four kings of Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran. In the 70s, it was Ali, Frazier, Norton, and Foreman in the heavyweights. In the 90s, in the featherweights, it was Marco Antonio Barrera, Juan Manuel Marquez, Eric Morales, and Nassim Hamed. In 1947 and 1954, it was Joe Lewis, Jersey Joe Walcott, Ezzard Charles, and Rocky Marciano. Let me get this through your thick heads again, boxing community, because you still don't get it. One belt. We got the one belt. It wasn't just one belt. It was the belt for the championship, not the belt Daniel Dubois has, because that's just a belt. This was the real belt for the real championship. Between these four all-time great heavyweights, and you can make the case for Ezzard Charles, the greatest light heavyweight of all time. Of course, it was the 47th. Joe Louis starting to hit his downturn. These four had a round robin where the matchups were historical, all-time great for the lineal prize, the legit real heavyweight championship of the world. Started in 1947 when Joe Louis the first time beat Jersey Joe Walcott. Actually, it was one of the most egregious decisions ever because Joe Louis, the Jersey Joe Walcott really won 10 of the 15 rounds. After the fight, Joe Louis expressed his gratitude and apologized. Set up the rematch between Lewis and Walcott in 1940 and for 48. Uh, it will turn out to be Joe Lewis's last great performance. He stops Jersey Joe Walcott in 10 rounds and basically just goes into his retirement, which led to the media the title. After that point, Lewis vacates the title. Now we have Ezzard Charles versus Jersey Joe Walcott. Ezzard Charles wasn't given a chance to fight for the light heavyweight championship, but now he moves up to heavyweight and challenges Jersey Joe Walcott. He wins a light heavyweight championship the first time by unanimous decision. It sets up a solid trilogy between these two gladiators in the 1950s. The first fight, Ezzard Charles won, but before the second or third fight, Joe Louis was forced to come back because the IRS thought they had so something that Joe Louis's taxes and forced him to come back. Charles comes back, beats Louis on a decision, albeit it was a badly fated Joe Louis. So after he beats Joe Louis, so what happens? He fights Jersey Joe Walcott in the second fight, gets a decision. And then the third fight between Ezzard Charles and Jersey Joe Walcott. Jersey Joe Walcott gets the championship, stops Ezzard Charles to win the championship. Now we fast forward to the next fighter in the equation, Rocky Marciano. The first fight, back and forth, all-time great fight. Back and forth action. Of course, the symbolic punch was at the end with the Marciano right cross that turned Jersey Joe Walcott sideways. It's on Google, one of the most iconic images in boxing and sports history. Jersey Joe Walcott down and out for the count. Rocky Marciano wins the championship. They have a second fight. Marciano wins that one again. Re-enter Joe Louis, a badly fated Joe Louis, as I talked about in the show a few days ago when I looked back at Marciano Louis. Fight basically had no business taking place. But again, because the IRS was up on Joe Louis's backside because of supposed tax evasion, Joe Louis was forced to take this fight. They didn't want to go to this fight because they wanted look for fights against guys like Charles and the rematch with Walcott being the corner of Rocky Marciano. But when they saw the downturn, they went ahead and took it. First 4 rounds, Louis did it best as he could, but from the 5th round on, Marciano just took over, knocked him out, and won the real saddest nights in boxing history. But Marciano remained undefeated, and that was finally the total end of Joe Louis. But as I said about Joe Louis, second greatest heavyweight of all time behind Muhammad Ali, number 3 all time in the pound-for-pound rankings behind Ray Robinson and Ali. 12 years, 25 successful title defenses with 1 belt. Not the paper championship. The one legit heavyweight championship, 1 belt. Joe Louis wore it for 12 years, 25 successful title defenses. That record is never going to be touched. Nobody even think about trying to touch it because it's not going to happen. Too many politics, too many butt kissers in the community when it comes to belts. They're the reasons why that's not going to happen. Which leads to the roundup of all of this. Basically, Rocky Marciano gets his rematch with Walcott. Has 2 great fights with Ezzard Charles. The first fight was a great give and take fight. Ezzard Charles goes a 15-round distance with Rocky Marciano the first time. In the second fight, Marciano got the early knockdown, but Ezzard Charles actually split Marciano's nose open in the middle of the fight, and they were darn near ready to stop that fight until Rocky Marciano stepped up and became Rocky Marciano and knocked out Joe Louis. He knocked out Ezzard Charles to retain his undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. 1 belt undisputed heavyweight championship. That's all that matters. That's what it was between those 4 gladiators, Joe Louis, Ezzard Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott, and Rocky Marciano from 1947 to 1954. Not what we see with Daniel Dubois. That's just a belt. This was a legit championship by 4 legit all-time greats, 3 of them probably a top 12 all-time in the heavyweight division, and Ezzard Charles, arguably the greatest light heavyweight of all time. That's all it was. 1 belt. We got the 1 belt. You were the undisputed champ, period. That's what that era was. Shout out to all 4 guys. You guys that was just a hell of an era. We talk about all the heavyweight eras in the 70s with Ali, Frazier, Foreman, and Norton. The 90s, of course, with guys like Buster Douglas, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison, and the list goes on. This one is up there with it. We consider these 4 guys had clashes at least twice each. One time there's a trilogy between Charles and Walcott, but it was a Fab Four like the version of the Four Kings. So that takes care of that. Happy Halloween, London, England. 31 years ago today, you were introduced to a legend, the great Lennox Lewis. At Earl's Court in London, England, 31 years ago today, one right cross at will, down wet Razor Ruddock in the second round. Fight's over. We have a new star in the heavyweight division. I talked about the Fab Four with, Lewis, Walcott, Charles, and Marciano. This was a mini heavyweight tournament in 1992. It was Lennox Lewis and Razor Ruddock. 2 weeks later was Evander Holyfield and Riddick Bowe for the heavyweight championship of the world. Lewis and Ruddock was basically a title eliminator. The winner was going to be the mandatory for the Holyfield-Bowe winner. The odds actually were back and forth. Last minute went to Ruddock's side, I believe. Ruddock, I think it was some kind of like a 7-5 favorite, I believe. But a lot of people leaned toward Ruddock because Lennox Lewis was a bit hot and cold at that point. Knocked out a faded Mike Weaver, but looked mediocre when he was carried the distance by Levi Billups. This fight happens for the title eliminator against the Razor Ruddock, who went 19 rounds with Mike Tyson, 12 of those with a broken jaw. He came back and got a solid win over a young Phil Jackson and basically was starting to trend upward, and finally he was going to get the title shot he deserved. But on this night, the first knockdown, the first time Lewis floored him with the right hand, you had a feeling this one's going to be over. And Lennox Lewis did not waste any time. 2 knockdowns in the last 20 seconds of round 1, 2 knockdowns in the first 30 seconds of round 2. After the 4th one, Ruddock was down for the count. Lennox Lewis is the undisputed number 1 contender in the heavyweight division for the Holyfield-Bowe winner. Now, of course, we know what happened after that. Riddick Bowe beats Evander Holyfield. Riddick Bowe taunts Lennox Lewis, who was doing commentary for HBO of the Bowe-Holyfield fight at that night. Lennox Lewis says, "I'm going to knock you out." And because he said it to Riddick Bowe's face, Riddick Bowe threw a belt in the garbage can to duck Lennox Lewis. Everybody knows the story of all of this. Lennox Lewis, the first part of his career, was hot and cold. But what we saw that night when he knocked out Razor Ruddock in 2 rounds to become the number 1 contender for the undisputed championship, to show the potential, the greatness he had. I mean, a 1-2, when he places it on the right spot, you're basically done. I mean, it was the one time actually Ruddock just slipped and fell sideways, if I remember correctly. Of course, he was gift wrapped a championship because, as I said, Riddick Bowe threw a belt in the garbage can because he wanted no part of Lennox Lewis. That is because in 1988, in the Olympic gold medal round, Lennox Lewis beat Riddick Bowe. He told him to his face and he was going to knock him out, and he did it. And when Riddick Bowe tried to confront him as he was doing commentary for the pay-per-view version of the Bowe-Holyfield fight, Lennox Lewis said it to his face again, "Bring it on. I'm going to knock you out." Riddick Bowe took the easy way out, threw the belt in the garbage can, and ducked him. And the fight never happened. Largely because Lennox Lewis was going to beat him again. I don't care what anybody says. But he did get the belt, lost it to Oliver McCall. As I said in a show a few weeks ago, the best thing that happened to Lennox Lewis was probably losing to Oliver McCall because he got the great Emmanuel Stewart, refocused him, got him trending in the right direction, got 2 wins over Evander Holyfield. Really, it's 2 wins. The first fight wasn't even a draw. Lennox Lewis won that one 10 rounds to 2. The second fight was a much better fight, but Lewis won. Lennox Lewis in 2002 does society a favor, puts Mike Tyson down and out for good. 2003 beats Vladimir Vitaly Klitschko, and retires as a top 6 all-time great heavyweight. You could argue top 5. Some people say number 1. I wouldn't even go that far, but he is at least a top 6 all-time great heavyweight. This night was Lennox Lewis's coming out party because it was nationwide via satellite. It was, of course, over there in London. Satellite worldwide, especially here in the States. I believe it was like 4 or 5 in the afternoon here in the States because of the time zone difference in London. It's a 5-hour difference from my part of the time, which is Eastern time zone, to England. And Lennox Lewis showed the whole world that night. It was 5 p.m. on It was actually a free HBO weekend, if I recall correctly. Again, this was free TV. Lennox Lewis demolished Razor Ruddock for the whole world to see, and the world got a chance to see a next up-and-coming all-time great, especially when you consider all the heavyweights that came through in the 90s. And the list was a thick laundry list. Buster Douglas, Evander Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison, David Tua, Hasim Rahman, Shannon Briggs, Andrew Galata, even the 40-somethings, George Foreman and Larry Holmes. Out of all of that, out of all of those heavyweights, the last guy standing was Lennox Lewis, the fighter of the 90s, at least the heavyweight of the 90s. In my opinion, the greatest heavyweight you could argue greatest heavyweight post Muhammad Ali, although Larry Holmes might have a say in that. But for that night at Earl's Court in London, England, they have a coming out party to let you know you're here. The road was introduced to Lennox Lewis. The rest of his career is history. Mike Tyson ducked him twice. Riddick Bowe ducked him. I told you what he did. And Evander Holyfield tried to stall him out. None of that worked. Lennox Lewis was coming for everybody. He was a man possessed. He was driven to be great. Everybody, some of the top heavyweights tried everything they can and didn't work. And it didn't. Three-time world champion twice, undisputed lineal champ. He got it with Evander Holyfield. Beat Michael Grant and David Tua on the come up. That nobody can say they fight fighters not come up like Lennox Lewis did. Lost it to Hasim Rahman because he was trying to get the Mike Tyson fight. He had a lapse mentally, but of course he gets his revenge on Rahman. It was the most brutal two-punch combination knockout you'll ever see. Hasim Rahman's face is still like this today. I mean, that's what you got to say. Lennox Lewis certainly was a man. Top 6 all-time top 6 all-time great heavyweight. Once he brought in Emanuel Stewart, that was all she wrote. Nobody was going to touch Lennox Lewis. Emanuel Stewart basically molded him into a heavyweight Thomas Hearns because if you look at the styles, basically the same. Stiff jab, the strong right cross with a downward trajectory, and you're down and out for the count. And that's basically who Lennox Lewis was at the end of the day. For Razor Ruddock, basically, you could argue the 2 fights against Mike Tyson took a lot out of him because they were give and take brutal fights. Some people are going to say he softened him up for Lennox Lewis. It doesn't matter because if Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet, why did he go take Razor Ruddock 19 rounds? Basically, Lennox Lewis did the equivalent of a minute. We think of the last 30 seconds of round 1 and the first 30 seconds of round 2. That for that 1 minute, he did what Mike Tyson couldn't do in 19 rounds. Think about it. And of course, it cultivated in 96 when Mike Tyson ducked him twice. First time he paid him $4 million not to fight him. Second time he vacated a belt so he could pursue the Evander Holyfield fight. And we know what happened there. They finally met in 2002. I was there in Memphis. It felt like a sad story because both guys were on the way downturn. But still, Lennox Lewis did the world a favor and put Mike Tyson down and out for good. And Mike Tyson's officially irrelevant. Man, what a time it was for those heavyweights. And Lennox Lewis stood out at the end of the day. Love him or hate him, because he had a hard time gaining respect for the longest time. Even in his own home country of England, largely because of a multinational background. But Lennox Lewis turned out to be the man at the end of the day. They say sometimes, fighters blossom when they get later in their careers. Lennox Lewis was a perfect example of that. Really, he should have retired after the Mike Tyson fight. I don't know why he went through with the Klitschko fight, but that's who Lennox Lewis was. Of course, the bizarre story there. He's supposed to fight Kirk Johnson. Kirk Johnson checked out in Vitaly Klitschko in a great 6-round back and forth action-packed heavyweight fight. Lennox Lewis wins it on the cut, basically retires with nothing left to prove. What can you say? Shout out to Lennox Lewis. Top 6 all-time great light heavyweight. I would say top 5, but I don't get into the ranking system. But if he's not in your top 6, I don't know what the hell to tell you. And which brings me once again to all of these belts that's going on because everyone is picking up on who the hell Daniel Dubois is fighting. It's not for the heavyweight championship of the world. It's for a belt. It's not the heavyweight championship of the world. That belongs to Alexander Usyk. It's a belt. Get it through your thick heads. It's a belt. It's not a world championship. It's a belt. The world championship will be fought in December when Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury go at it again. Guys got to understand this a little bit. You guys act like Daniel Dubois winning a belt is something of significance. It's just a belt. We have a lot of belts in the sport, way too many. That's why I like to bust out all this historical theoretics on you guys, so you guys get a perspective of what real championships were. 90% of you guys are so obsessed with the belts. Again, you guys try to think belts make the fighter when they don't. It's the other way around. So the great Sumbu Calibe once said that when he was wrongfully stripped of a belt. He's not the only one. Canelo Alvarez said that also, many among many others. Straighten up a little bit. These are belts. They're not world championships. The real world championship is coming up December 12th, Usyk Fury 2. And on that note, that will wrap up the daytime edition of Sirhan on X. Monday, I will go to prime time at 7 p.m. from this point forward, as I will venture into the day shift supervisory role at my current job. But word of advice to everybody out there, because I know a lot of you guys are struggling right now with whatever in the era of mental illness or whatever the hell you want to call it. I learned this a long time ago. Always, always, always make self-care your number one priority. Take care of yourselves first. Don't worry about the ears outside. Worry about you. Focus on you. I learned that the hard way, and that's what I've been doing from this point forward. Best thing I can tell everybody out there: live one day at a time. Make the days count. Make self-care your number one priority. Don't mess with people who make you an option, because you're not making self-care a priority if you do. I love giving inspirational words sometimes because I get this all the time. I'm 40. I'm 47 years old. I'm still at the phase where I can learn, but now I'm at the phase where I can help people grow and become better people and live better quality lives. I mean, that's what you learn when you get in your mid-40s. But that will do it. Hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful 3-day weekend. Good luck to all 32 teams this coming weekend in the NFL. And good luck to all of my fight followers. Hope everyone out there is doing well. I will be back in the fight community here soon. I had some hiccups. I'm going to get some new content with my partner overseas in England. Some new Ezzard Charles photos. Until then, everyone out there have themselves a wonderful day and weekend. Take care. Good night, and God bless.